Okay, so inside the week, I dropped something on my WhatsApp status that prayer started in the Garden of Eden, and my friends they just came online and they were like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" So I think let me use this opportunity to explain better. First of all, you have to understand the concept of prayer. Prayer is man having a communication with God. You could say prayer is man having a kind of a dialogue with God. Prayer is man communicating with the supernatural. And the first man to ever communicate with God or to communicate with the supernatural was Adam in the Garden of Eden. You will see that according to the Bible, that at the cool of the evening, the voice of God was heard in the Garden of Eden. So that means Adam communicated with God, even though it was not practically called prayer then, until I think it's in Genesis chapter 4 that they say man now began to call on God, and the name was now given to it as prayer. But the first man who enjoyed the perfect system was Adam. Okay, after the fall of Adam, the system was altered because man did not have a direct access to God again. In fact, it was only few men that had access to God. Those were the prophets and the priests. The remaining of mankind now struggled to hear from God. They even had to depend on the priests and the prophets to also know what God is saying. So until the time of Jesus, man was struggling. So God needed to build a space like the Garden of Eden that could give him conveniency, or that would give him access to communicate with mankind. Now, if you read Isaiah chapter 56, Isaiah had an idea about this whole thing, and Isaiah said, "The house that God is preparing for himself shall be called the house of prayer." He said, "My house shall be called the house of prayer." If you read Hebrew 11, they said our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and the rest, that ran this race before us, they were hoping for a city not built by the hand of any man, but by God directly. So the kingdom that God was trying to erect that could help man access him was not going to be built by any other means but through prayer. The only way God can build it was through prayer. That is why he said, and don't you know that your body is the temple of God? Because anybody who pray houses divinity. Anybody who pray can interact with the supernatural. So therefore, you are not just a believer, but you are now the Mount Zion. You are not just a believer, you are heaven yourself, because you now house God. God now dwell inside of you. You can now interact with God. What Jesus came to do through his death was to restore us back to that previous communication system. What Jesus came to do was to prepare our body, not just to be clean, but to now become a city that hosts God, that hosts the entire supernatural being. So a man who prays hosts the entire supernatural being. In fact, a man who prays will always host the supernatural realm. I hope this have blessed you, and I hope this have helped you to understand how deep prayer can be. God bless you for watching.